from the experts behind FIDM's annual debut runway show. First, before we introduce our host, I'd like to invite the co-chair of FIDM's fashion design program, Nick Verreos, to give us an overview of what the debut show actually is. Nick?
Hi everyone, it's Nick Verreos and my fellow co-chair, David Paul, of the Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising, FIDM. And before we get started, I wanted to give a little overview on what is Debut. The Debut is a show that provides graduating students in theater costume design, advanced fashion design, textile design, interior design, to present their work in the form of a professionally produced runway show. The Debut show is the culmination of their work showcased in a top-notch runway presentation. Originally, it was a way to showcase the collections, the mini collections of the advanced fashion design program students. But as FIDM got bigger and we got more degrees, more programs, then I think it generated a lot more work that could be showcased in the Debut show. And if you may be thinking, where does the name come from? It is almost like debutante. And so it was thought of as a way for the graduate design students to debut their collections onto the fashion industry. So that is what the Debut show is.
Thank you, Nick. You explained it as only you really can. Thank you very much. We knew only Nick could do that intro for us. So thank you for that. Now that we understand what this is, I'm really proud to introduce the host, but let me tell you a little bit about Gene LeBrock, our host. He lives in Los Angeles, California. In addition to his role as executive director of FIDM Productions, chair of the digital cinema program, and the producer of the Debut show that we're all going to talk about tonight, he also serves as a consultant for multiple entertainment companies. Gene has provided post-production services for many entertainment industry titans, including MGM, Lifetime, Discovery, Miramax, Universal, Fox, CBS, ABC, A&E, Dreamworks, HBO, Tribeca Henninger, Oliver Stone, and more. In forming his post-production company, Gene designed a one-stop shop model that ultimately became the cornerstone of the digital media program at FIDM. We're very proud of that. Gene LeBrock has spent almost his entire life working in the entertainment industry. He's a professional musician, a composer, and spent many years as a drummer, working with numerous notable bands and artists, including Heart, Ricky Nelson, The Platters, and many others. While obtaining his bachelor's degree in music from Cornish University and Berklee School of Music, Gene continued to perform and tour both domestically and internationally. After graduation, he took a break from performing and modeled for Fashion, one of the top modeling agencies in Europe. Upon his return to the US, he began acting and worked in multiple feature film and television shows. Acting eventually served as a stepping stone that motivated him to launch LeBrock Film Ventures, Inc., a production company under which he produced and directed multiple feature films. His deep understanding of the film and music industries makes him invaluable both in a consultant capacity and for us as an educator at FIDM. He has experiential knowledge of all the various aspects and nuances of the two industries. So there's really no one more perfect to be hosting this event for us. So without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to you, Gene, our host.
Wow, that's a great introduction. Boy, I think the seminar's over now, right?
Yep, let's go home.
Oh, thank you so much for that. Wow, that was a lot. Thank you. So hello and welcome. My name is Gene LeBrock, and I'm the chair of the Digital Media and Digital Cinema program at FIDM, as well as a producer of the Debut show. In the next hour, my part in the next 15 minutes or so, we're going to take you through what it takes to create and execute a large-scale fashion event such as the Debut show, Debut 2020, even though we haven't done 2020 yet. I'd like to first welcome my friends and power people in LA and around the globe, Crista Klayman of LA Models. Thank you for being here. She's one of the most respected modeling agents around the world. Nick Verreos, of course, as alumni of Project Runway and the winning mentor on Project Runway, Under the Gun. I remember that, Nick. I remember. And is the co-chair of FIDM's fashion design program, along with David Paul, who has designed costumes and worked as stylists on such shows as Queer Eye for the Straight Girl, Passions, and many, many other productions. So I hope you all enjoy this journey. And let me first make sure that I'm sharing my screen here with you. Here. There's so many things here I have to do at the same time. Share the screen so all of you can see. Okay, so share.
There we go.
There we go. All right. So I hope you all enjoy this. So sit back and enjoy the journey of Debut 2020. All right, so here we go. Hope you enjoyed that. Hope it's not too loud. So let me first talk about FIDM just for a second here. FIDM's digital media program is a broad-based curriculum where students learn all aspects of post-production, including editing, motion graphics, 3D modeling and animation, web design, and so much more. At the end of the first 2 years, students receive an Associate of Arts degree in digital media and are prepared to begin a career in the post-production side of the industry. Then we move on to the digital cinema program. So our students learn all aspects of production. They take courses in directing, lighting, screenwriting, producing, finishing, and more. At the end of the 2-year curriculum, students receive a Bachelor of Arts degree in digital cinema. Combined with the digital media Associate of Arts degree, these two programs introduce students to the entire production pipeline and pre-production through post-production. So let's get started here. So the first phase of planning a grand scale event is pre-production. Every year for FIDM's annual debut show, we create a massive amount of elements and lots of hard work, sweat, and tears from everyone who goes into bringing the show together for debut. We had to create 106 motion graphic elements, complete all editorial processes, and compose 50 original music cues for debut 2020 alone. So what is phase one, you're asking? So to get started with pre-production, I focus on music first and use drums first to figure out the sound and the sonic feel I want for the show. The choices I make will set the emotional tone for the entire production. Once rhythm for the show has been determined, whether it's slow, cinematic, and sweeping, or fast, the next step is to start layering the melody along with that. You can see up on the right-hand corner, there's something called these are virtual instruments that I use as strings, piano, and drums. That is not me playing the drums, however, though. So once I find the melody I like, I kind of build on that. And then on the music editing side, all these instruments are brought together on different tracks inside something called Pro Tools or Logic Pro or Ableton Live for those of you who are musicians, or other professional audio applications. So let's talk about inspiration here. So next we look for visual inspiration. How do you get inspired? That's the main question. And I'm sure Nick and David are going to talk a lot about that later. It really can come from anywhere, even a children's movie. Coco is an animated movie set around the Day of the Dead. The colors in the movie are vibrant, eye-catching, and compelling. The look fit well with the musical feel and felt like the perfect color palette for me for debut 2020. So how do we get started here? So it's time to design the graphic elements. So to incorporate the colors from Coco into debut, we use the same tools students learn in our digital media program. We begin by using Adobe Photoshop to design some of the graphics. Next, we're going to talk about layer-based compositing and what it is. Adding layers onto layers to create a final image is called compositing. It can be done with photos, graphic elements, and even with video. We use Photoshop, a layer-based program, to create our images. For our first layer, we photographed a model, making sure we caught a captivating look in her eye, or not in her eye. In this case, we had them closed. Then we added another layer to incorporate our color palette here. We wanted some movement, of course, so we added movement in After Effects. So we look for ways to animate some of the graphic elements within that image. Since this composition will be on screen at debut, it will be very large. Any movement will feel dramatic because of the size of the screen. So here you can see the culmination of those two things put together, Photoshop and After Effects, and create some movement here. So next in debut here is something called chairing styles. It's a segment of debut where we showcase a chair on screen while live models walk the runway in their garments made from the same textile material. First, we shoot the video of the chairs, rotating them to show every angle. The rotation causes shadows, so lighting is extremely important. Here you can see some of the chairs. Now, in the upper right-hand corner, you can see the lights facing at the camera. We did this on purpose to create a natural organic flare for us. So here is behind the scenes of filming this chair. We put it on a turntable, and then we rotoscope this out, ultimately, to look like this. So you can see the movement, and we put this in After Effects so that we can create a template for that and incorporate our graphic design as well. I think it turned out really nice. So chairing styles, let's look at the live event here. Here's how it manifests. In the debut 2019 show, you can see the massive scale behind there. You can see the models walking there. So it really is something that is hard to predict when you're doing it on a computer, how it manifests onto a large screen there. So next up is the denim segment here. So we were faced with the challenge here. Let me go back to this. Faced with the challenge of creating an opening for the denim design. So we incorporated photography, Photoshop, and Adobe Premiere to cut an opening for the denim students. We were given photographs of the designs that the denim students designed, and we incorporated an opening. Let's listen to this just for a second here. Great. So then we had to create backgrounds for the denim designers. So we chose to use After Effects once again and create a template to show the various designs of the students while they're on the runway. Keep in mind, this is all being done by one person using Photoshop and After Effects. You can start to see this synergistic approach between these particular platforms. And by the way, we teach all of this in our program at FIDM. So here it is on stage again, live, 2019. By the way, shout out to Brandon LeBrock if he's listening. It's a great song that we use right there. So you can see some of the scale here of what happens on the stage here. So next we get to theater costume. So theater costume has become one of the most popular segments. Theater costume, because of the amazing costumes and the theatrical presence. We had a big challenge this year because the costumes were larger than life and the story really needed to be told so the audience could understand what the designers were challenged with. So we created motion capture video here, and this is all compositing with text, employing the platforms Photoshop, Illustrator, and also Adobe Premiere Pro here. So how does it start? So it starts with a script. We get the script, we read the script, and try to figure out how best to complement these wonderful designs. So they give us sketches, and these sketches are amazing, and it probably doesn't do it justice here looking on the video, but these sketches are just absolutely stunning in person. This is another one here. So we look at these sketches and figure out how best to display their designs on the runway and complement their backgrounds. This year, we were really lucky because we were able to film the costumes behind the scenes to get a better feel for how they would move on the runway. Let's look at this just for a little bit. You can see these are amazing costumes and they flow. For those film buffs out there, we shot this at 59.94 frame rate and slowed it down to 29.97 to give it that silky smooth look. We shot this in the museum at FIDM, set up a white screen. I think it came out great. My compliments to the designer. And here we do this again with a different designer. It really is incredible, these designs. They just did an amazing job that Nick and David are going to talk about a little bit later, but I was just so incredibly impressed. So in addition to motion capture in 3D, we also added music and sound design to make sure the final product was even more powerful and impactful. Audio is it's really vital to creating a compelling project. Our digital media students study using audio to support their projects, making them more dynamic and give them emotional impact. Here, let's listen just for a little bit here. Also created motion capture 3D, as you see here, along with score. So to be effective, the director must be able to give direction to the cast and crew, obviously, so the show reflects his or her vision. One of the key elements in our live show is dance. The director works with a choreographer to come up with a routine that reflects his or her vision for the show. And let's watch just a little bit of behind the scenes at rehearsal here. Now we're going to take you live on stage. Same thing. Hopefully you can see it come to life a little bit and how it manifests from the designs to the choreography behind the scenes. And then once it gets to the stage, it's such a grand scale. I want to change direction just a little bit here, because as the iPhone camera continues to advance, so does the capacity really for using it in a professional arena. Industry pros are definitely taking notice of the phone's capacity to shoot high quality footage while being very easy to use. I'm a big advocate of the iPhone 11, along with something called Filmic Pro. It's a $5 app that really turns this camera into almost like a DSLR. You can set aperture, ISO, frame rates, and so many other details. So I hope you really check it out and make sure you explore your camera for a lot of different kinds of things. Next up is visual effects. For this video, we used After Effects to create lines and add visual dynamics to the video. The movement added through these visual effects adds interest by driving the cadence, rhythm of the video forward, and ultimately it turns into something like this. All right, nice. So now it's time for fashion design. Yay, yay, yay. So we start off with sketches here, and their vision for the collection that Nick and David will talk about again very soon. So we look at the sketches, and Scarlett did an amazing job here. So we get a chance to see her collection and the movement inside this collection, so we can get a better idea of how to complement that. Then next up, we have to interview the designer so that she can kind of give us an idea of her collection and the inspiration behind that.
My collection is called Nightshade Fairies, and it's inspired by beautiful moments that happen in the darkness of night and like the beauty but mystery of the forest. It's also inspired by like an actual fairy, particularly their wings. So
with that, then we take that's a radio edit, then it turns into
So my collection is called Nightshade Fairies, and it's inspired by beautiful moments that happen in the darkness of night and like the beauty but mystery of the forest. It's also inspired by like an actual fairy, particularly their wings. They're sheer and very light and airy, and a lot of my garments reflect that as well. I love my collection. It's exactly what I've been wanting to do like my whole life, pretty much. Here. I've been like dreaming about this, and the fact that I'm finally
able to also go behind the scenes a little bit with her and see how her collections moved as well. Same thing that we did for theater costume, and I'm getting an error message here saying that some of the participants might not be able to see the video, but I'm hoping that you guys can. So then we need to look at a color palette from one of the designers to help us design the background because it's such large scale. So here's how it manifests. You take these colors, and this is unrelated because now you're going to see the debut 2019 background, but just to give you an idea of the scale. So the screens are massive, and it's important for us not to get in the way, but to design along with the designers so that we complement their designs without being distracting, because it's such a huge screen. So then it's the model time here. And thanks to Crista, we have the best. So one of the other key roles for producer or creative director is choosing the right models for the show. I can't say enough about making sure you have the right models for your show. We're fortunate enough to be able to work with one of the biggest agencies around LA models, and it really does make everyone's job easier. So also, set designer is very important. This is one of the sets that we were looking at building for the show itself here. And then we move in day one. For debut, we use the Barker Hangar in Santa Monica, California. It's a very large scale space, but when we first arrive, it's nearly empty, as you can see here. Rigging, you can see everything on the floor here has to be assembled and then pulled up via rigging so that it's on top of the Barker Hangar here. And then ultimately, the production management, that's in a critical position here because it makes life much easier. You have to have a great production manager. And then it's rehearsal time here. And then we can see a little behind the scenes here of some of the models. I know Crista will recognize all of them. This was shot a couple years ago, so they may look just a little bit different. And so really, that's an overview of the debut show beginning to end. I know I had to go really fast and we just touched on certain things, but here's a short little highlight from beginning to end of debut highlights. Hope you enjoy it. All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed that very quick overview from beginning to end, and it allows you kind of to see some of the process with designing a show of this scale. So with that being said, I'm going to turn this over to Nick and David, and thank you so much for letting me show you some of this.
That was amazing, Gene. Thank you, Gene. We learned stuff. I know. Right? We've been part of this for many, many years, and still there are lots of things that we don't know. Yeah, no, it's incredible. I have to say, you know, I've been now as co-chairs of FIDM fashion design and all that encompasses, and also being in charge of, you know, the debut in terms of the fashion. I've realized, you know, I've been in this for so long because I was one of those debut students back in 1884. And so it's like, you know, just going back to the years, it's like I've been involved now with Debut for a long, long time. And of course, I didn't realize all that it took to, especially the behind the scenes. You know, for me as a young FIDM student, it was like I was making my 10-piece collection, and you know, 10 months later, it was going to be shown at this, you know, amazing debut show. And I remember before I even applied to design schools, that my advisor invited me to go to the debut show, and that was it. I had gotten, not to boast, but I had gotten accepted to all the top design schools, including FIDM. But it was after attending the debut show that I was sitting in the nosebleed seats, and I said, I want to be one of those designers there. So it's just funny how full circle it's come to now that we are part of it. And for us, you know, as you showed in, you know, a lot of people get debut and the advanced fashion design program kind of intertwined. And we try to explain it by, it's the advanced study in fashion design program, which comes after the AA, and it's the debut show. But I know a lot of people use it interchangeably. I want to go into debut. I want to do debut. And it's, you know, you don't want to correct them with, you know, in essence, they're kind of right, but it's more about, you want to go into the advanced study of fashion design program. And so as you showed in the, for the debut show, we do take care of the fashion, as well as in the theater costume design, which is very exciting for both of us. David has more of a curriculum vitae resume in theater costume. He got his master's from UCLA in costume design, and he's been in the theater. So that's really his where he, you know, he's amazing at. I mean, he's great at a lot of things. Thank you. but definitely, you know, with a lot of people with our designs, it all begins with obviously looking for candidates for, in terms of the advanced study in fashion design, we like to choose 10 to 12 students, graduating students. Usually they come from the AA program, but now we started opening it up to the BA of design. And if anybody's interested, if one of those students are interested in doing the program, it's a 9 to 10 month program, requires 3 quarters. And basically they get to spend 3 quarters, 9 to 10 months, creating their first collection. And it's a capsule collection. We call it a collection, but it's really a mini capsule collection involving 10 to 12 looks. A lot of people may want to know what looks are. Well, that's basically outfits, an outfit. A look can be a gown, it can be a dress, so that's one. Or a look can also involve a jacket, a top, and pants. So that's 3 garments. So it depends on the different styles. And, you know, every year we interview a lot of prospective students who want to be in the program, because this is it. This is the premier program. And being in the debut show is really, I think, you know, it was, for me back in the dinosaur days, it was like the Oscars of fashion school. And I think it still hasn't changed that way, where we still get new Nicks and Nikitas wanting to be part of the Oscars of you know, the fashion design in this amazing one-of-a-kind fashion show. And so we look through a lot of candidates, and obviously we look at their grades, but more importantly, we look at portfolios, we look at diaries, right?
Yeah, and we have in mind that we are, you know, this is an elevation of their study. So they have spent 2 years, sometimes coming from the VA, they've spent 4 years. And this is a moment for them to really elevate all their learning and all the knowledge they've gained through those years, and produce products that Jean can highlight. You know, you do think of that. You know the size of the show, you know how impressive it can be. And so our job, which after seeing all that Jean does, feels like a small component of just making sure that those designers live up to their potential.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, live up to the moment. And I think definitely since we've been co-chairs of the program, which has been almost 2 years now, the code word is elevate. And we tried to tell, when we accept the students into the program, that we want things to be elevated. You know, we like to choose a variety. So if you want to do avant-garde, if you want to do athleisure, streetwear, children's wear, menswear, but don't just give me menswear, honey. We want elevated. And a lot of times we have to sort of teach the students, and that's what school is about. What is elevated? We have been through it because we're old. We know what that means. And sometimes we just have to, we help it. And every single time the students come back and they're like, we get it, we got it. And we try to infuse our passion for knowing what is that. Because we don't want the students to also waste their creativity and design time, because this is the moment. And this is when you got it, because, you know, who knows, especially in the fashion industry, even I, after I did my debut show, I started designing t-shirts. So it was like, you know, for many, many years, I didn't get a moment like this. Don't waste it. And so we like to choose a variety of designers, of students, a variety of styles. Like I said, if somebody wants to do avant-garde, go for it. You know, and a lot of times it can look cray-cray, but we make it look elevated. We help you to get it elevated. You know, and so children's wear, menswear, whatever it could be, they get to make 10 to 12 looks from beginning to end, from scratch to the final garment.
Yeah, it's all about the process, I think. And that's what's really important to understand, because you have, we just saw the end product. You know that you're after that end product. But what we try to do over those months and those 3 quarters is really walk them through the process of how you create that collection. Where does it begin? Most importantly, where do you find that inspiration? You might know at this point you are going to be an evening wear designer, right, but an evening wear designer can run the gamut, you know? So what type of evening wear designer are you? And where do you find your inspiration? And we give them those tools in the AA, and what we do is we just try and build upon that. So that is obviously the very first step, is letting them find their inspiration, using tools for them to find that. So imagery, we have them do collage boards. We try and keep them away from thinking about fashion. You know, we talked about looks straight off the bat. You know, a look can be a jacket and a pant. And lots of times they'll come in and say, well, I know that I want this, that, and the other thing, and I know my collection is going to look like this, and I know it's going to be red, black, and white, and we try and what we want to do. Stop. We know, you know, listen, we know that they were probably at age 10, sitting in bed, in their bedroom, sketching their debut collection for 12, 15 years later. And then they show up and they're like, this is it. And we're like, nope, nope. And sometimes after months and months of working at it, we end up with a more elevated version of what they were making when they were 8, you know? But the whole point, you know, like David was saying, we start them out with the creativity, the inspiration. Stop. I don't want to see fashion. I want you to gather 100 photos and not a single one of fashion. Look at trees, look at insects, look at architecture. Somewhere else, you know, it's like a couple study weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, just delve into it. We had a wonderful experience with one of our debut designers from this year, originally from Japan, and we told her about, what is your inspiration, what is your theme? And after much discussion and like, come on, find something, all of a sudden she stopped and she said, you know, I have this family member who's special, and you know, she's mentally challenged, and for years and years she used to put on her clothes backwards. I want to make my collection be all about that, to honor her, and then do something that is avant-garde, stylish fashion, to bring a fashionable homage to my family member's quirky
you know, thing that she used to do. She would have never gotten that unless we told her, like, think about it. We don't just want these designers, these students to be like, I'm inspired by flowers. No, what flower and what country and what island in Madagascar is that from? You know, like, think about it.
Yeah.
And the reason is we know now for 30 years, over 30 years of having our own line and experience in the fashion world, 20 years later, you're going to be a fashion designer, you're gonna have your own line, and press, editors, they're gonna ask you, what is your inspiration? You cannot sit there and be like, it was flowers.
Yeah,
you know, at least lie.
The more you understand your inspiration, the more you research it and dive into it, the better you'll be able to speak to it. And that's a very important part of being a fashion designer. We know at the very beginning, Jean will be interviewing them and they need to speak on it. They need to eventually sell their collections.
Right.
And the more you can sort of understand, have faith in yourself as a designer, then it all starts from that inspiration.
And it's a growth, you know, as co-chairs, we want these 10 to 12 debut students, advanced study in fashion design, particularly with that program. This is their collection. I don't want you to make my collection or his collection or the instructor, you know, sometimes it's like, you know, you may have an instructor be like, well, I'd rather you do this. No. You know, it's because in the end, the clothing that is going to be up there on the runway is going to be yours. And so, you know, for example, Scarlett, she came in with the Nightshade Fairy theme. And of course, I had no idea what that is. She educated me. And she had visions, very lingerie-like visions. And even she admitted it was a little junior. And I told her, elevate it. I don't need to see the H&M version. Up there on that runway, we want to see the $3,000 version that H&M is going to copy. That is what debut is about. And just bringing that passion to the students, and they get it. That's what they're there for. I consider, especially with the debut in our program, it's sort of, the AA program is like your fundamental foundation cooking school. Not that I'm hungry, but the debut is like the cordon bleu, where we've gone beyond cooking the white rice. Now let me show you how to do that Greek pasticcio.
Well, you know, FIDM is so incredibly lucky to have both of you, and I have seen the change in not only just the excitement around having you both there, but the students can feel it as well. The flexibility, the professionalism that you both bring to this is really exciting. I know that I was really excited when I heard that both of you were coming to FIDM as co-chairs, and you can really feel it from the students, because it's almost like a world is opening up. And not that they did a bad job before, but you guys just bring a whole new level to this that is incredibly exciting. And yeah, FIDM is incredibly lucky to have both of you. You know, I wanted to mention something to you, is kind of get Crista in here for a second, is that, you know, you can have the best designs, and I can do what I do and try to make it, you know, snazzy and compliment the designers. But I really have to say, you know, the ability to use a professional model, and you guys have used professional models from Crista's agency for years, it makes all the difference in the world. And I would love to just hear a little bit about, Crista, you know, how is it that y'all have such great models and such professional that nature?
You guys are so sweet. And just to go back on what you were all saying, yes, you're professional, but I think the thing that is so overwhelmingly wonderful working with you is your passion. And you care, but you share. You know, you have all this information, and you know that you are creating the designers of tomorrow that one day may take your place, but there's no fear. It's all about giving and love and your time. And just for me, I've been an agent for 34 years. I've been with LA Models 31. I discovered Tyra Banks when she was 14. And every year when you meet these new models and my male models and my female models, I try to hold on to the passion too. Otherwise, why do we do it? So Jean, thank you so much. But for me with Debut and the models, it's just the greatest gift for me, because to me, it is the most spectacular event of the entire year. I am fortunate enough to have tall, thin, beautiful people in my life, you know, and they travel. And I cannot tell you, it comes usually around January 15th that my text messages and my emails start coming in. When's the FIDM casting? I want to be, when's the FIDM cast, you know? And they don't do that for a lot of other things. They're making their money, they're working the world. I'm so grateful and lucky that I do have the best runway models anywhere, but they come to me after working in Paris and Milan and New York, and they'll do a stop in Chicago and Atlanta, and then they're in LA. And the great thing with Debut is I work with lots of designers and lots of department stores and Rodeo Drive boutiques, but with FIDM, because the set is bigger than life, the designs are bigger than life, the students are from all over the world, and this is their big moment. Half the time there's someone with a camera filming it so grandma can see them in China. Like, just such a big thing. And because it's bigger than life, like, I get to book my 5'11" girls that have walked with every designer in the world, and then in heels, they're 6 feet, they're 6'1", which gives me the ability and the power to like bring in male models that maybe like a certain designer wants the boy girl look. Well, we're FIDM, they want the 6'3", maybe you're gonna have your shirt on, maybe you're gonna be in swim, maybe you're gonna be in the velvet floor length jacket you've ever seen. But for me, it's the easiest, and I'm the most grateful for this booking, because I never ever have to say to a model, hey, I would really appreciate it if you would do this show. On the contrary, it's like, did I get it? Did I get it? I go,
right.
Oh, okay, I'm going to let you know. And I mean, I had this beautiful 17-year-old girl who had just done Prada, and I love her. And she came in and said, I really want to do FIDM. And I said, you're not going to book FIDM. So, and she said, why? I said, because you're little, you're new, you're green, and you're 5'9". And I need the most powerful presence anywhere on the runway. So it just makes my life easy. And when we talk about food, like, Jean put so much preparation into this bigger than life event. We just saw a piece of it. You guys are like developing and nurturing and designing and doing all these things. For me, I feel like almost unworthy, because I feel like I'm the prompting. Like, I get to go, ta-da! And here's these beautiful people that are going to show off all your hard work. So I truly am grateful. I think it's the most incredible school, the most incredible program. And every year it is like, just even the casting is one of my favorite days of the entire year, because I get to spend it with you guys, and I get to see all my models because they actually come in for a casting. So for me, it's just the greatest joy of the whole year for me. And I'm so grateful.
It's a lot of fun, and I look so forward to that casting as well. But you know, it's a collaborative effort, really, right, guys? I mean, there's no one person does more than the other. It's a huge collaborative effort. Yeah. And I think it takes a mountain to create this particular show. And it starts off with, you know, Nick and David, it starts off with you guys in creating these incredible designs. And it really is amazing to see these designs up on the runway for the first time. And I can only imagine how these students feel to see their collection on the runway for the first time.
Yeah, and also with the model component, we can make the clothes, we can have the students make the clothes, but they do need to see them on a body. Yeah. It's so important and so essential, and it's part of the advanced fashion program that is so special, because not only does Crista provide the models for the fashion show, but she also provides them throughout the year so these designers can properly fit their collections on a model, a human, and the models provide valuable feedback. They will tell you, I can't raise my arm.
I can't sit.
I can't sit. You know,
they'll point out a wonky crotch. You know, all those little things, and I think that's one of the unique bonuses of being part of the Advanced Study in Fashion or Debut is that you get to, as part of the program, you get to work with professional models in fitting your muslins, your toiles, your samples. And so you get to have professional fit experience that you will probably not get for years to come, knowing what a quarter of an inch makes of a difference and how to lower a dart a quarter of an inch. That kind of knowledge and working with an actual human figure, a model, is invaluable. And that is part of what you get. And that is also why then when you see it eventually on the runway stage at Debut, the clothing looks so perfect. It is, you need to do it. You need to do it the right way. You know, again, let's go back to cooking. You can't just use any olive oil. You got to use Crista's olive oil of bottles. It makes a huge difference. Listen, in all my years of doing a lot of appearances, especially after Project Runway, I've attended many, all over the country, graduate shows for design schools and different, and while they were cute, they were nice, let me tell you, it makes all the difference. And like I always say, if you're gonna do it right.
I want to jump in, you guys. Oh, sorry, Crista, I want to let you talk. I wanted to jump in because we're getting some really great questions from the audience. Okay. I wanted to give them a chance to get those answered. One of them was, someone says, my question is about the sustainability of fashion. Does FIDM have specific programs for sustainability in fashion as it relates to Debut?
One answer.
Do they repeat it again?
Is there a component of sustainability that plays into fashion at FIDM, but also with Debut?
Well, you know, yes, definitely. We definitely have sustainability, especially with textiles and denim in the denim program. So you see it definitely with the denim program. But it also involves, you know, if one of the designers that we choose for Debut wants to use upcycle or reuse, you know, do something with sustainability, because that is a big buzzword that a lot of students want to work with and want to do something when it involves, you know, with that, in terms of like reusing fabric, not having to buy new fabric and sustainability and all that. So that definitely, if that's what the student wants to do, we definitely, push for that. Because we know that is something that is very important for the market, for sure.
Yeah, and we've had some designers that work hard to use the buzzwords no waste. So to lay out their garments, to create a garment, to design a garment that limits the amount of waste in the fabric. And that's just a whole component, which is just wonderful. Yeah.
And they're really genius with it, really putting it together like that. Yeah. It's impressive. Thank you. Another good question. For Nick and David, do you recommend or shy away from inspiration from classical paintings, including the specific context of costuming a period piece with a painting from time to time? Do you stray away from that, or do you like to utilize it?
Oh, I think wherever you find your inspiration is great. If it's a classical painting, that's amazing. I mean, I know we have garnered endless inspiration.
I mean, not just for theater costume, but let me just tell you about fashion. There's a gown behind us that was inspired from Klimt. And I'm always looking at John Singer Sargent. If anybody doesn't know who John Singer Sargent is, look at his paintings. We go to the Met in New York and literally just stop and spend hours staring at John Singer Sargent paintings. These women, these aristocratic women of the East Coast, just sitting there looking divine. And I just think, well, let me envision the 21st century version of that in a red carpet gown. So of course, I think definitely classical paintings and classical art is definitely an inspiration with fashion as well, contemporary fashion as well as theater costume, for sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. Another good question for each of you, actually. What is each of your favorite component, your favorite part of putting together the debut show every year?
Crista, why don't you take that?
My absolute favorite part is I bring in, you know, like for me, I kind of have a feeling who I think that you guys will book. And then it's fun for me that maybe a model flew in from Seattle that morning and that's your favorite, or a model that I've only had for an hour, but I know that she's done 1,000 shows. And I think, oh my God, I think she's beautiful. And it reinforces when you guys are like, she's amazing, like Jaden, you know, like that was
right.
a gift, but the excitement. And I never know like what your costumes are going to be and what the theme is, and it's always bigger than life, and I try to get the information. Great, I'm going to think, so sometimes I get it, sometimes I don't, but I'm just telling you, my friends from all over are like, what day is debut? I want to go. Like, we're going to dinner, we're going to have a glass of wine, and then I'm going to enjoy the extravaganza. I'm like, all right. So, you know, Carlos, how many tickets do you need? I'm like, how many can I have?
For me, really, it's the process. It's really interesting. And Nick and David, you talked a little bit about that spark, that inspiration, that idea. For me, it's really challenging to have a concept, an idea in your head months and months before you see it materialize, and know that there is a stopping point, even if you don't think it's perfect. It's the evolutionary process of any creative skill. It's just putting one foot in front of the other and challenging yourself, stepping outside of your comfort zone every once in a while and doing something that's a little scary. But knowing that at the end of the day, you have enough confidence to say, listen, I've done the best job I can possibly do, and there's a tomorrow. So that it's all really, the whole process is really exciting for me.
Yeah, and from an education standpoint, that's such a valuable lesson to teach, you know, that this is just sort of the beginning for them, and they aren't going to get it perfect. You know, you're not going to reach the perfection maybe you thought it was going to be when you started, but you're going to come as close as you possibly can at this point. Nick, we've talked about a lot where you know you design a collection and then you present it and you look back on it and you think, oh my God, I would have changed a million things.
Yeah.
And that's just all part of the learning process.
Yeah, that's part of the learning process. I always tell future debut students how when I did my debut collection, I thought it was going to be the next Versace, because you know, I'm aging myself, but it was 1992 and it was all about Versace. And so you look back at my debut and it was very, you know, it's like the Spanish version of Versace. And a year later, I was like, oh no, what was I thinking? You know, so it's like, you know, it's just, you know, it was very of the moment of that time. And, you know, but that happens every time. And, you know, you talk to designers, all designers will tell you that, you know, because you spent 6 months working on a collection, working on a line. After it's done, it's like giving a baby. After that, it's like, be gone, baby. I don't want to see you anymore. Because literally, you have to work on the next collection. So you've been with that collection for 6 months. After the following day, you're like, bye, done.
I was just going to say, it's practically applying the educational process here. Anytime you can practically apply something that you learn and see it and touch it and feel it, and it really makes a huge difference. It's not theoretical, it's practically applied. You're doing it, you're making it, you're designing it, and then you're seeing the outcome of it. And that's really how you learn, is just moving with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Along with, Crista, go ahead.
I was just saying the students there today are the most famous designers tomorrow, you know? Yeah. So it's just a nice thing to see.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what, the debut, the 10 months, 9 to 10 months they work on the debut, it is a training. They don't realize this. You realize it only later when you start designing your own line, when you have your own company. What you learn there is the proper procedure to do a line, to go through the process, to do the drape, to make the pattern, to have a fit session with a fit model, whether it's a professional LA model, Crista superhuman, or your sister. But to know how to identify what's wrong with that pant, what's wrong with that. All of those little things that we are giving to you, those tools that we're giving to you in those 9 to 10 months of debut, they will be with you forever. And they will come back to you like riding a bike 10, 15, 20 years later, or even 2 years later, whenever you decide to go through the process of creating your next collection for your own brand and business.
And because you guys teach them business, which I'm sorry, modeling everything is business.
Right.
You also teach them that when they hit that level of maybe stardom as a designer, they respect everyone that does all those other things because they learned it themselves. So they respect it, because it's not like, oh, I don't even know what they do. It's like, yeah, you do.
Yeah, right.
You do. So
yes.
I just think that it causes a nice work environment because it's a respectful environment for all. Because you're there and you learn it.
Yeah, it's with all the majors at FIDM because FIDM has so many different majors. And what's really interesting, it's also the why as opposed to just the how-to. Why are you doing what you're doing when you're designing it this way? Why do you use that particular application? That's really what I have found that sets FIDM apart from a lot of other colleges is really you understand, first of all, you're working with a professional, right? That's been in the business for a long time. And they can talk to you about the why. Here's why I do what I do. And it makes a huge difference to students when they can be with someone like, you know, Nick or David and some of the other faculty that are working in the field and doing it today. It's that why factor is really important.
Everyone, we are at the end of our time. Can I just ask one last question that will wrap it up? We have several students asking, if I want to be a part of Debut, what is your advice? Could you give them a very quick, less than a 30-second answer?
That's you.
Work hard, continue to be inspired, and just, you know, keep your focus on what you want and what your dream is. And when you do all those things, then you can get there. And some people don't get there on the first try, you know, maybe like Crista's models. Some get to debut after they try a couple times. But if it's your dream, go for it.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we tell, in terms of advice for FIDM students, if you're attending FIDM, you know, obviously try to go to do your best in your classes. Try to be creative when it comes to your work, your assignments. You know, a lot of times the instructors say, make this in muslin, which is unbleached cotton. But some instructors will tell you, you can do it out of fashion fabric. So be a little more creative, because when we interview you for debut, we like to see some creativity. We're looking at are you showing us something that is next in fashion? That's what we're looking at. Can we define what that is? We ain't telling you, but we know. And so it's about creativity. It's about, yes, it's about a perfect portfolio. Yes, it's about great, you know, sometimes, yes, sketches help, but you can be very creative with that if you don't know how to sketch, to do a good portfolio, good presentation. But, you know, we're looking at that je ne sais quoi, that I just don't know, but I know it kind of thing, where is this person going to add something next, something new, something fresh to fashion? Because like we've all said, this is the future. This is the future of fashion. What's next? And so, you know, just do really good in your classes and try to be creative, especially with draping, pattern making, your presentations. And always keep a diary, a journal. We love to see what we call your heart. You know, sometimes we like to see that journal more than we like to see the actual assignments. With the assignments, yes, we know that you checked off the boxes, but we really can't tell the difference between John and Jim. Only when we see that diary, that journal of stuff that you've collected, can we know who you are. And that is when all of a sudden we're like, ooh, now that's special.
You know, I would say basically, you know, fear is such a big factor. I would say let the fear go and move forward and do the best job you possibly can do. Because like Nick and David were saying, you might not make it the first time, but maybe there's a second or a third time. And fear stops us all. If you could imagine, you know, trying to cultivate this big debut show, I've been doing this a long time, and I get fearful every single year because I think, you know, this might just suck, right? But can you imagine walking into Crista's office as a model, a young model, saying, hey, I want to be a model, right? It's just fear. So let the fear go, put one foot in front of the other, step forward, get outside your comfort zone, and do something that you've always really wanted to do, and live your dream, you know, and experiment a little bit. Don't be afraid.
Excellent advice, Jean. Perfect words to end it on. I want to say thank you to all of you, Nick, David, Crista, and of course, Jean, our host. We have really enjoyed being with you today, and we've learned so much, and we're all feeling very, very inspired. To all of our viewers out there, we want to thank you so much for being with us. We have enjoyed our time with you very much, and as we mentioned, we will be having many of these different events coming up. So please follow us at FIDM on our social media, and also pay attention to our website, to our events page.